Lakers bubble trouble, UFC 252 recap, and the boys of summer might become the boys in the bubble. Time to sideline the agenda. Welcome to Sideline the Agenda, sports podcasting done right. My name is Scott. With me is Kevin and Chris. UFC crowns a champ, Lakers lose to Lillard, and we've got Fair or Foul coming up. But first, considering what we've seen recently in sports, it has become abundantly clear that professional sports leagues are no longer concerned with the entertainment value of their product. They have aligned themselves with political agendas and have used their platform to promote them shamelessly. No other league personifies this more than the NBA. When COVID-19 migrated its way to North America, the NBA was the first to shut down operations. They set a precedent, and soon thereafter, the entire country followed suit. In coordination with Disney, the NBA constructed a quarantine zone, a safe space, a bubble at Walt Disney World Resort in Orlando, Florida. There, the league could have complete control of its residents. No one is allowed in or out without approval. Meals are prepared and packaged in advance, and everyone inside is continuously tested, and there are consequences if you happen to miss a test. If any of this is sounding similar to a prison, it's because it is. All in the name of safety, of course. The NHL constructed their own bubble up in Toronto, Canada. Both the NFL and Major League Baseball are considering a bubble-like environment for postseason play. The Dallas Cowboys players, coaches, and staff will set up their summer home at the 5-star Omni Hotel next to the Cowboys practice facility to help their fight against COVID-19. So why should any of us be concerned with this? Well, just as the NBA set a precedent for lockdown, we may soon see a bubble come to a city near you. Think it can't happen? We might see a time where schools, universities, cities, and even states set up bubbles and restrict their citizens' movement to protect them. Last week, New York City's mayor, Bill de Blasio, launched checkpoints located at bridge and tunnel crossings to intercept cars from states where coronavirus is still a problem. Visitors are made to fill out health forms and must quarantine for 14 days. We have an authoritarian's dream and a freedom-loving individual's nightmare. So we are highlighting this bubbling issue here today to sideline it. We hope that you will join us, and hopefully together we can burst their bubble. So guys, what do you make of the bubble approach to sports and its praise for its effectiveness? Is the praise justified, or is there another agenda afoot?
Yeah, there is a massive agenda afoot here. One of the main goals that we're doing here is pointing out that indeed in sports, it's not just about the sport any longer. It's about pushing political agendas. It's another pawn in the game of these political organizations, these mega corporations, how they want to steer the world. And it's almost intimidating covering a topic like this because I really want to do it justice, really want to emphasize the importance of this particular issue, because you may think that it's just a silly sport. It's not really going to have any effect on your life, but it is. It absolutely is. To the point in the opening statement, the NBA set the precedent to lock down. They were the first thing to shut down. It's not a coincidence that happened. It was planned. It was part of the agenda. Now they are also the first one that started this bubble. And it's a bubble. It's so playful. It's so friendly. It's so non-threatening. It's what kids play around with. You know, they blow bubbles. They're cool things. They're fun. They're happy. No, it's a quarantine zone. That's what it is. It's a quarantine zone. You don't go in. You don't go out. You are a prisoner. You are locked down in there. And again, in the statement, we said it could be coming to a city near you, universities, schools. You might only have a limited amount of space or places where you can go. And if you think that this can't happen, it's actually happening. It's already happening. We've got an example here that just popped up in the news. A university in Michigan. Let me find the tab here. Michigan's Albion College. Students cannot leave a 4.5 mile COVID bubble quarantine zone. They can't go outside of a 4.5 mile zone. They all have enforced tracking on their phones. So they know if you go outside your quarantine zone, and if you go outside of that zone, you can and will be suspended. Also, in that part of the package is you only have certain places you can go for commerce. You can only go and eat at certain places. You can only go and buy at certain markets. So this is a authoritarian's dream, as we said in the opening statement. The power grab that's going on with here. If you can tell people where they can and can't eat, where they can and can't buy, where they can and can't go without permission, this is ridiculous. This bubble needs to get burst now. We're seeing the Major League Baseball pick up on this. We're seeing the NFL pick up on this. And this is why it's so important to not all the boycotters out there. It's important to still keep an eye on these sports and see what's going on in there, because it's useful as far as the propaganda and what's being pushed. Because if you're just off in your own world, I mean, maybe you're only paying attention to what's on the news as far as politics goes, and you don't pay attention to what's going on in sports. If you're paying attention to both, you can really kind of form a better view of what's going on in reality and what's getting pushed. Because the people that tend to be sports fans may not be involved in the politics side. So they kind of think that most people are on one side or the other, so that they can get people on this side and they can get people over here different ways. But when you're involved in both and you've got an eye on both, you can really start to put the whole puzzle together, and you can really piece things together. Again, it's no coincidence that the NBA was the first to set that precedent. It's not a bubble. It's not a fun, cute little thing. It's a quarantine zone. And again, this is what we want to point out here, where we were actually talking about this weeks ago. I had a post a few weeks ago mentioning, hey, are we going to see a bubble coming to a city near you? Just thinking like, oh, maybe it's just a weird conspiracy theory. Maybe it actually won't come out. I'm just going to throw the thought out there. But no, it's here. It's happening. Yeah. And schools are already implementing this.
What's amazing to me is that it like you're saying, NBA has completely been like the testing ground for a lot of things. And the bubble is definitely one of them. You ironically really don't hear them talk and praise the NHL. I don't know if the NHL bubble has been effective or not. I'm assuming it has been, but it's all about the NBA. And I think it's worth pointing out there's a reason for that. And it's because of the demographic. It's young people, typically, young urban folk who like to watch basketball.
Big cities.
That's what I mean when I say urban folk. Thank you for clarifying that. I mean cities, metropolitan areas, and
dense populations.
Dense populations, exactly. And also an impressionable, a formable, a moldable demographic to get them used to a concept of this bubble model, controlling a space, a city, a state. Like I said, even with Mayor Bill de Blasio attempting this, I mean, a fool's errand is what it's turned out to be. I mean, trying to pull over people with out-of-state plates, has just been an impossible task. But nonetheless, the effort was made. I think it's an interesting thing that the NBA specifically has kind of been the example for those, and the pieces that I've read have been plenty that have praised the just the success of this bubble method, and the suggestions are always then put that these other leagues should follow suit, and also they'll almost they'll talk about how Major League Baseball, they'll lament the fact that Major League Baseball hasn't done this. It's just, it's a crazy thing to me, because I think about the whole coronavirus as well. And the fact that you have this virus that is, completely new, completely contagious, completely, in my belief, created in a lab. And the likelihood of most people, getting this on a long enough timeline is pretty high. And it's all this protection has been set up, understandably so to an extent, from keeping people from getting it. But in the news, when you hear in the news with players and whatnot getting it, it's always that, 14 players from the St. Louis Cardinals have the coronavirus. 6 players off of the Chicago Cubs. But they typically come back in like a week or two. They're as far as I know, they're healthy, they're fine. I know that people will bring up the statistics, which are extremely small, of those that might have permanent or lasting lung issues. But from, like I said, from what I understand, that's a minute percent.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah,
it's interesting to me that
Yeah.
that they talk about the headline is that, these people have gotten the coronavirus, but they never. It's not like they never recognize that. They're better. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like when it, so
Yeah,
is this
cases,
really a
cases,
threat? Is this
cases.
even a threat to these athletes? It's not. Of course you can make the case for staff, coaches, whatever, people who are at risk. But if you're at serious health risk, then you should opt out. You shouldn't even be around.
Yeah. If I may, I kind of disagree and agree with you, both of you guys here. I'm disagreeing on the simple fact that the longevity symptoms, they may last for a longer than what we know. We have never encountered this. They're saying that some symptoms of people, they lose the taste of smell and taste. And then also you had just mentioned a lung infection. And they are saying that some in some cases they may be permanent, that they don't ever come back, which would mean a huge crisis with our health. Obviously, we need every single one of the senses. I also would like to disagree as well, because I think we should have more bubbles, guys. I was thinking that every conference should have a bubble, should have a home field or home stadium where these games can be played, and everybody in the same conference or league can go to this one stadium to sort out that conference, and they can play there in a safe environment. I think the NBA, they saved the season. Let's be honest here, guys. They saved the season by going to the bubble, and roughly, quite frankly, they're still would be able to play. Seems like in a safe environment. We did mention and point out that there will be some chippiness out on the court. We are seeing that, a lot of people aggravated, some attitudes, but seems to be going without a hitch. I will say that with what Chris was saying, the technology behind the control in which, if we have pursuing future of bubble making, environment making, and obviously that's going to be a huge problem, to where we're going to have to be very, very, very careful what we're getting ourselves into. I'd like to point out, I read a article on Wall Street Journal about the 2018 NFL, and they said time for NFL games roughly on average about 3 hours. It seems about right, about 3 hours and 12 minutes, I think it was. They also noticed that each play was on average about four seconds each play. So essentially they break it down, right? And they say, throughout the game, the real football we were watching is about 11 minutes. And then they also point out that we watch replays and players before the snap, after the snap, just kind of loitering on the field, coaches too. We watch over 17 minutes of that footage. So we watch more footage of them not doing anything than them actually playing. Then they also noted that they take 20 advertisement breaks, and we see at least 100 advertisements in each game. Now, obviously, that's going to be a lot of money, and obviously packing the stand is a lot of money too with the entryway. But now they're not going to have that either. So yes, to the point what Chris is making, the control behind that is very scary, because now we're going into, okay, how are they going to get the money? Are they going to be charging, just like the NBA? They have the virtual audience now, where you can send in your little, you and your face, or you're doing something like cheering on a team or whatever. Are they going to start charging that? Are they going to say, hey, for you to watch this game, you're going to have to go through the streaming service, in which we'll charge you, or if you want to buy a seat, we'll put a camera here on the seat, and we're going to charge you for that seat, and virtually you could be here. They're going to find a way to get that money, guys. And also in a bubble environment, we're going to have to see how many games we can fill in one day, excuse me. The NBA, I mean, I think they're doing a pretty good job with that, but is it really efficient they don't have the full 30 teams out there. MLB doesn't have the full 30 teams either when they go into the playoff season. In the NFL, they got 32 teams. So it's like, I mean, how efficient can they really be by throwing in all these games in one day? I mean, are they going to take out all the advertisements? Are they going to take down all that just delay of time and is meaningless? I highly doubt that. But that's something I was pointing out earlier to a friend of mine, and it's just interesting. The control that they would have behind the bubble and where we go from there is scary.
It's the introduction of the technological control grid, and they're using the virus as the excuse to implement it. Whether you believe the virus is super contagious or whatnot, it's kind of a side issue, because all you got to do is, even if you believe all the case count numbers that they've counted, because there has been tons and tons and tons of cases of false positives. Just take Stafford on the Lions. He was positive, and then 2-3 days later, like, oh wait, no, sorry, you're negative.
Right.
There's multiple hospitals in Florida where they were having like 100% positive rates, and they're like, hey, maybe something's wrong here. Everyone's not actually positive. So, I mean, even if just at face value, you take the numbers straight off the CDC website, you take the amount of deaths and you divide it by the amount of total cases, and you get your death rate. I did that like 2 days ago, and the death rate is 0.031. 0.031. This is not a deadly virus. If you're going just at face value off the CDC numbers, this virus is not out there killing people in massive droves. It's killing older people. It's killing people with pre-existing conditions. There might be a few one-off cases here or there where it affects people for longer, but to shut down society, to implement this control grid is completely ridiculous. This is why they're using the NBA to start this whole bubble quarantine zone concept, so that they can track and trace every single citizen. And you have to have where's your papers? It's the same crap you saw in Nazi Germany.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely
where's your app?
That's definitely the worst case scenario, and I think that's kind of maybe Chris and my argument that what it's doing is it's lessening it's making the idea easier to wrap your head around. For you as an individual. I as far as the bubble in regards to NBA, NHL, and all of that is concerned, I understand why they did it. It makes sense why they did it, and it has seemingly been successful. At the same time, I think that Major League Baseball teams that are going out and still touring around the country, and the players happen to get the virus. Ultimately, I think that that's just the natural way that this virus is going to I mean, it's herd immunity.
People get sick all the time.
Exactly. And the death rate is so small that it's actually really it's no threat to the players themselves, and probably the majority of the staff and the people involved. There are those that it is a threat to, those with pre-existing conditions, man. You should be inside. You shouldn't be out at the ballpark. You shouldn't be working with the teams. Like, you should, if you have a legitimate pre-existing condition that is a serious concern, you need to do what you need to do to stay out of the way of this. Yep. That doesn't mean that we all need to stay out of the way of it.
The flu, pneumonia, that's very deadly, especially for older people in nursing homes. This has been going on since the beginning of time, since the beginning of mankind. There's been viruses. It's only now where we've had this whole lockdown. Now we've got these bubbles coming. There's a bigger game going on, and that's what we're trying to point out here. It's not just simply about a novel virus.
How about this? Is it the chicken or the egg? And what I mean by that is, is it the NBA bubble created out of response to this pandemic, and that the success or the potential manipulation sparks ideas of control in those who motivations may be questionable, specifically in politics? Or was the agenda already there from the start, where this is an opportunity to, one's a little more conspiracy theory heavy, while the other one might just be more organic in nature. What do you guys think?
I think that we're in some scary times at this moment, and there's a lot of mystery. There's a lot of, we don't understand the virus in full, and I think it's brand new, and that's why you get this chaotic response. I think it's to what you're asking. I think that a lot of the unknown of what may happen or it will occur is really what's infringing upon people's minds, and that's what's creating this chaos, this kind of fear of where do we go from here. I don't know if it's a big conspiracy. It's just a matter of what you believe and how it came to be in the first part. Do you think it's man-made? Do you think it's natural? Do you think we're doing this to preserve and keep everybody healthy and away from this? Do you think that we're going to come out with an honest and an honorable vaccine to where that actually is going to be the cure or prevent, where we can, or are we just going to shoot up people with a vaccine that's not even real? It's just, there's so many questions that are open, and it's scary times right now. But as far as the technology, I mean, we're already in advanced technology. China was already tracking down people that had got the virus, and they could track them 14 days prior through their phone. Obviously, that, anybody that they came in contact, they can know who's in the same vicinity through their phones, and so they can quarantine those people. They had already done that.
Yeah, scary thing though when freedom starts to fade away in the name of safety. We got to move on, but Chris, I'm going to give you the last word with this.
Yeah, I mean, because it's a good question. Chicken or the egg? Is the bubble just organic? I think the lockdown kind of proves the point to where the NBA was the first one to do the lockdown, and then everything else followed suit. Why were they the first ones to do it? So I think the bubble kind of proves that, yeah, they're
the UFC had Fighter Island.
But at the same time, you're looking at China. That this is where this virus comes from. You got the NBA that's been in bed with China. You've got the whole China-USA trade war that's been going on. There's a whole lot of other things going on in this world that seem to kind of tie together. So, I mean, who can really say for sure? But it's I'm definitely looking more at the agenda side of this, and to the bubble concept. I mean, we got to burst this thing. We can't be having kids at school being quarantined. We can't be having big cities saying you can't travel from one city to the next without pre-approval. We can't be contact traced and having apps on our phones tracing everywhere we go all the time. Anyone that we come in contact with, we can't be being told what stores we can and can't shop at, like these kids that are going to that university. And that's really what we want to prevent here.
We can't have sheriffs posted at bridges and tunnelways, pulling over people with out-of-state plates. I mean, there is a Fourth Amendment. We do have a right to travel. And, where's, like you said, where's your papers?
Right.
In this case, they're filling out papers, but
keep in mind, guys, UFC came out with Fighter Island as well before the NBA. And that's a lot like the bubble, but they just call it something different.
Yeah.
Dana White is he's a genius businessman for sure.
And definitely, I don't, and I just want to reiterate personally, I don't fault any of the leagues for doing what they're doing. It's just an interesting thing to think about for all of you out there listening and watching this podcast, wherever you may be, that there are definitely agendas afoot, and to me, it just seems like certain leagues, especially the NBA as of late, has been an interesting testing field, and
not even mentioning BLM.
Yeah, well, I mean, exactly. You're not even getting into that,
Yes.
So let's go ahead and move on. But first, we'd like to invite you to join the agenda, to sideline the agenda, by subscribing to our videos. Hit the notification bell to be notified when we go live, and follow us on Twitter at Sideline Agenda, and you can also follow us on Instagram and Parler at Sideline the Agenda. Sideline the Agenda, sports podcast done right. All right, gents, moving on to our second topic. Stipe Miocic defeated Daniel Cormier via a unanimous decision to retain the UFC heavyweight title in the main event of UFC 252 on Saturday night in Las Vegas. Miocic increased his record of most title defenses in UFC heavyweight history with the victory. And this was the third fight between the two men, and Miocic broke the tie, winning the trilogy. So, what did you think about the fight?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of typical of some trilogy fights, especially when in the first two fights they've knocked each other out. They both were a little more careful, knowing what the other guy was bringing. I mean, obviously the familiarity after two fights, you're definitely going to know there as well. So there's a lot more being a little more careful. I was surprised Cormier didn't try to take him to the ground as much. He tried to a little bit in that first round, but I was surprised he didn't keep going back to it, especially with the smaller ring. He kind of stood, and they're mostly trading for the most of the fight. It was a close fight. Lots of people had it tied up going into the last round. Cormier did take a pretty significant poke to the eye, but I mean, Miocic got poked as well. Even Dana White was saying, "Hey, you guys can't look at the poke or blame the poke." It was a good, hard fought bout. Miocic definitely kept, stayed strong throughout the fight. I thought he kind of figured him out a little bit in that second fight. That's why I was expecting Cormier to really kind of take him down more, try to use his wrestling more, because I think that once Miocic figured him out in the second fight, that he was going to be able to beat him standing up. And it turned into mostly a standing up. Miocic was able to pin him against the fence quite a bit, keep it standing, not making it a mat match. And in our predictions, we both said that he would have the advantage if it was going to be standing up. We both kind of thought that Cormier was going to try and take him down a little bit more than he did. But, I mean, congrats to both fighters. Cormier is probably going to be retiring. He did announce his retirement. Is he going to stay retired? We'll see. I kind of hope so. He's had an outstanding career. Miocic, he's the GOAT, UFC GOAT, the most defenses. And ironically, they're talking about him going up against, is it Nagano? It's hard to pronounce that guy's name. And possibly even John Jones. But it's funny because he's actually rated as an underdog against those guys. Like, how can you be the GOAT UFC heavyweight champ? Most defenses.
He's rated. He's
like an underdog, the betting underdog. He's always the betting underdog for some reason. But that's kind of funny. But yeah, it's a great fight. Not as action-packed as I was kind of expecting, but again, with third bouts like this, both guys tasted each other's power. They're going to be a little more careful.
Yeah, talk about a sport that does miss the fans.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, but that said, I still love it. Like I love the unique experience of not having fans around. It just puts a different feel to the sport. Kevin, what did you think?
Absolutely.
DC got saved by the bell. Let's be honest.
Oh, that's true.
Second
That's
round,
true.
he would have been KO'd.
Yeah.
Stipe would have knocked him out. If he had 10, 15 seconds more, DC nights out.
Yeah,
See you later.
him.
So I'm glad Stipe won. I wanted to point out that I was complete. If you watched the episode last week, which you should have, because you should be subscribed. If you watched it, I was completely wrong with my whole estimate, my whole prediction. I thought DC was going to be the one laying on him, putting his body weight on him. But it was actually Stipe. He was leaning on him, putting his body weight against the fence. Stipe, they both got their blows, man. They both poked each other, but they both got their hits. I mean, the chin on DC and the chin on Stipe, we talked about glass jaw. No, that was answered. Great fight, guys. This is exactly what we anticipated, exactly what we were geared up for. I think it served, and it just breeded a successful fight to all the fight fans. It was just some nice to watch. I hope DC doesn't retire, but in his words, if he's not gonna get a title shot, then why go out there? So.
No, he's definitely proved himself over his career. Yeah. I'll say this. I mean, I said last time that, obviously I don't really follow the UFC closely, and it's not because I have anything against the UFC. I don't follow it. And I really did appreciate kind of getting your guys' takes and your guys' setup, because I felt like I knew what I was looking at. And I was, especially when I was noticing some of Stipe's body shots to DC.
Yeah,
he landed a couple of good ones, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, I remember Chris talking about that.
That was the game changer in that second bout for sure. Yeah, but I'm glad Kevin brought up that point. I don't know why that slipped my mind, but he totally had him. End of the second round, Cormier was saved by the bell for sure. Stipe had him. He even said in the post game or the post fight, he's like, "Oh yeah, he was totally gone." After the second round, he had him. And in the beginning of the third round, he tried to press the issue a little bit. But I mean, hats off to Cormier. He's one tough SOB, and he was able to hang in there and make it a full bout.
Well, Kevin already answered this, but what do you think there, Chris? Do you think Cormier should retire?
Yeah, I think he should. I mean, he's 41. Yeah, usually once you get, especially in a sport like that, you start getting above the 40s, you're going to start losing that extra little millisecond that makes such a huge difference in those type of sports, those combat sports. It's the difference from dodging a punch to getting hit flush on the chin. He's had such an amazing career. We mentioned it in the last episode. I believe Kevin brought it up that he's got so many different things lined up where he's going to be still successful, still raking in the dough, commentating, coaching, really whatever he wants to do. So, I mean, why go out there and take that punishment again? He did take a pretty significant poke in the eye. I thought I heard something about possibly a detached cornea.
Oh, wow.
Or retina, excuse me. But maybe that was a different fighter. But I would say stay retired unless they're gonna come out and say, hey, how about another trilogy about you and John Jones again? But
another trilogy.
He would take that. Yeah. He would take that too.
Yeah, I mean that would. I mean, hats off to him again if he would take that, because he got knocked out pretty bad from John Jones last time. But John Jones is trying to come up to heavyweight. So, I mean, maybe they would make it a heavyweight bout instead of light heavyweight. I think that would be intriguing. You would have Stipe versus Nagano. Nagano. Yeah, thanks. As the next heavyweight title bout. And then you could have John Jones Cormier 3 at heavyweight. That would be very intriguing. And then you could even do the winners of those matches face off again. But would we really see a DC Stipe 4? I mean, who knows if DC somehow beat John Jones? I mean, I guess. But I think it's probably going to go. John Jones will wait his turn and eventually face the winner of the next heavyweight championship bout. And I think DC will probably stay retired. So
yeah, that scenario, DC would be fighting when he's like Tyson's age.
Yeah, right.
With a Stipe 4. What do you think about that, Kevin? John Jones, what do you think about that proposal Chris just came up with?
It'd be awesome trilogy fight. I think Cormier would be out of his element, but because just like Chris said, I think he would lose a step at 41. But John Jones is trying to up the ante, move up in weights, be something interesting to see. I don't think that a winner should get a title fight. To be honest with you, I think everyone's kind of jumping on the John Jones heavyweight title fight already. Let's give him a couple heavyweight fights before he steps up to Stipe. I would like to see him fight some. I would like to see him fight Brock Lesnar. That didn't go through, but that would have been nice, or at least have a fanfare. Fans would love to have seen that, and he called him out already. I know that was a couple of years ago, but definitely missed the boat on that one. But I was definitely wrong with Sugar Show, and I'm changing subject on you guys.
That's fine.
I don't know what's going to happen with John Jones, guys, honestly. Dana White, but I was completely wrong with Sugar Show. I don't know what happened with him, Sean O'Malley. I was watching all the tweets that all the ex-fighters were in there. They were getting in his ass. They were, Sugar Show is now gone. The show is now over. This is happening. You have a lot of hype. And I don't know if he twisted his ankle or if he just
he seemed to have some kind of weird injury or something. Yeah.
It was just anti-climatic.
He was stepping forward, and it seemed like he rolled his ankle, and that was pretty much it from that moment on.
Yeah, you can't move, you're sitting duck.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that was like the fight of the bad hair too.
Yeah,
with the clown color, and then the other clown across the way who ended up winning with his razor's edges and.
Yeah,
it's like a costume party half the time. I guess that's part of the entertainment value. So
yeah.
But all a good fight, and definitely Cormier's future will be bright, and like you guys mentioned, whether that is in the ring or behind the broadcast booth, and I'm sure that he's definitely considering that. So let's move on to the NBA. The Los Angeles Lakers bubble trouble continues during their first game in the first round of the NBA playoffs as they struggled against the Portland Trail Blazers in a 100-93 loss on Tuesday. Damian Lillard dropped 34 points to LeBron's 23, making LeBron his first playoff debut as a Laker. So are the Lakers at risk of losing in the first round? And what would that do if they did? What would that do to LeBron's legacy?
It would not be good, that's for sure. That would be a major, major blow to his, quote, legacy, if it doesn't already have enough chinks in that armor. But yeah, I mean, I still think the Lakers are going to pull this one out. If I was a betting man, 6. I mean, it might go 7. But I think Dame Lillard might have been watching one of our fair or foul segments when we said, after the Clippers, that whole thing happened. And I was like, why don't you guys just, handle your beast out there on the court? He's been on a tear ever since. Yeah. He's had several 50-point games, 40-point games. They've been winning. They took the first game. They're the 8 seed. And they took the first game from the number 1 seed, big powerhouse LeBron team. I don't know. Maybe LeBron's focusing too much on the politics. He's got his whole get up. He's trying to get his attention that way before the game. How about you focus on the game? How about you focus on winning? That will be the best for your legacy, is actually winning. But are they in trouble by the Blazers? I mean, it was still pretty close coming down to those last 4 or 5 minutes or so. The Blazers hit a couple timely threes. Lakers just missed a few shots. That happens. I still
missed
think
a few shots, man. They missed a bunch of shots.
True.
They had terrible shooting percentage.
But they were still within reach, even with that. So I would still think that they would pull this series out. They're the number 1 seed for a reason, but they need to take advantage of their size. We talked about it one of our earlier episodes that not having Avery Bradley there does definitely hurt a little bit. But with Anthony Davis, with LeBron James, with the whole rest of that roster, you should not have much trouble with the Blazers. You should be able to get them out. I mean, you lost the first one, but you should still be able to get them out in 6. So are they in trouble? I mean, we'll see after game 2. If they lose game 2, they're definitely in trouble. We have already seen LeBron sowing the seeds of doubt. He's been planting his little excuse seeds, and if things go south, he'll start growing those, and he'll have plenty of ammo for his billions of minions out there to to go with. But I think he was saying something like, "Oh, we've got some off-court issues, blah blah blah." Yeah, maybe it's the politics. Maybe you're thinking about too much political stuff. So I don't think they're in too much trouble.
Maybe he's still trying to get Kuzma traded.
His farewell tour.
Farewell tour. Yeah.
Yeah. But with Anthony Davis, like one of our earlier episodes, we're talking about Scottie Pippen saying you've got to feed the beast. He's got to be the guy everything's got to go through. So it shouldn't all fall on LeBron.
Yeah, because when when they're not going through AD. To me, it makes the brow look like the big soft man, like the big soft man on court. And so I always just get so confused by this style of play where they'd rather, try to, lob up 3-pointers, opposed to just working it inside the paint constantly and consistently. I don't know what's so hard about that.
Yeah, they're easier to guard when they're not going through AD like that. I mean, at least just have, if you're going to be going up from the top, at least just pick and roll with LeBron and Anthony Davis all day, all game. How are you going to stop that? I mean, you can't stop that. You're going to have to double somebody. Someone's going to be wide open for 3, or someone can roll to the bucket. You're not going to stop Anthony Davis or LeBron, the freight trains to the bucket. You don't have enough size on the Blazers. So, I mean, it's interesting. The Blazers got the momentum. They've got the fire. They've been in playoff mode the last week plus. Lillard has been on a tear. If he can keep this going, I mean, maybe they'll just run into the wrong team, the wrong player at the wrong time. But I think this would probably be the biggest upset in playoff history as far as a 1 versus an 8 seed. I think we saw I want to say it was 2007, if memory serves, Dallas Mavericks falling to the Golden State Warriors. Dallas was the number 1 seed. They won like 65, 67 games, something like that.
And should get our
And
stat
they
person
got
on
beat
that.
they got beat by the Warriors. That was a major upset, but they didn't have no LeBron James on the team, no Anthony Davis on the team. So if Portland does pull this out, I'm calling biggest upset ever, and this would be another huge blemish on LeBron's track record. He could definitely not ever be considered no kind of GOAT in no way. He's got the last 2 sweeps in the finals, one in 07 and one like 2 years ago, plus several other finals losses. And if he gets bumped out after he was bragging so much about, I came out west and I got the number 1 seed. Y'all couldn't say I couldn't do this out here in the west because it's so much tougher out here.
I love how he kind of
now I should be MVP because we're number 1 in the west.
I love how
he's all about that.
I love how he skips over that first year he came.
Yeah, he's like, I came out, I messed with the West, I got number 1 seed, I should be MVP for that. So if he gets the number 1 seed and then goes through and loses to the 8th seed, oh my gosh, that would be definitely a huge blemish on his career for sure.
Yeah, Damian Lillard, that's the bubble MVP. He's been putting up points like crazy, coming out with ammunition, ready to fire. Right. He's not getting enough credit. I honestly think that AD just didn't show up. Obviously, he scored 21 points in the first half and finished with 28. I mean, that's just not going back into him. That's the reason why they lost the game. Yeah, they were missing shots, but they just simply stopped going to AD. I think it's pretty simple to see. Now, LeBron, I think that he's going to have a great matchup with Carmelo. I think Carmelo hit that big 3, was it within 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes of the fourth quarter. He hit a big 3. He had a big quarter out of CJ McCollum in the third quarter, and the Dalian just kind of shut it out. And I don't know if they could do that every night, but it's fun to see the matchup between Carmelo and LeBron going back and forth. But I think the Lakers will be all right once they start draining a couple threes. Green had a lot of open misses. If they go back to AD in the paint, in the fourth quarter, I think he'll take a victory, take you to
win. I agree. I think they should still be able to get him out in 6. I mean, the Blazers might be able to pull out one more, but the Lakers should be able to get this done in 6. I mean, 7 at the most. But they
should. Funny. They should be. They should get it done in 5.
But yeah, I mean, there's no home court advantage, so we're stranger things as we're seeing, like Dallas just put a beating on the Clippers, and everyone's really picking the Clippers to kind of win this thing. Well, lots of people are. So, one game, it is a long series, but we'll see what happens.
Paul Pierce already mentioned that the GOAT discussion should be over.
Yeah.
If he loses this, it should have been over, but I will give credit.
10
I will give credit to Paul Pierce. He had already stated that, a couple of weeks ago or a couple months ago. He was like, he's not even in the top 5.
No.
Yeah, Laker history. Which he's not, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. I think that they should close it out. I don't know if they will. I mean, again, that whole live by die by the 3 thing, that really gets you and really tends to sneak up on you in the playoffs. And I think that it really comes down to the bench and the bench productivity, but also whether or not they're going to work it through AD. I mean, not to just continue to jump on Scottie Pippen's statement, but I think he's absolutely right with this. I mean, if they're not going to work the ball through AD and they're not going to run their offense through him, I think that they can get beat by a team like Portland, because if anything, Portland has the heart and they have the desire. And I don't know if it was the heckling from the Los Angeles Clippers bench that woke a sleeping dragon, but Damian Lillard is on fire, as we've stated before, and it just doesn't seem to cease. Like that guy's lobbing them up from half court, and they're going in like they're a 12-footer. Like it's something to see. And so I really do believe that if they do upset the Lakers, and I think a lot of people are kind of rooting for that, and admittedly a Laker fan here is kind of rooting for that. I'm kind of more of a LeBron hater than I'm a Laker lover. But at the same time, the story of Portland coming into this situation and them just going on a tear like they have, and being the 8th seed, but having to battle with Memphis and to get to this round of playoffs to then take on the Los Angeles Lakers, the one-seeder in their first game, come out victorious. If they can continue that momentum, whew.
Yeah,
arguably, it's a David versus Goliath story for sure.
Arguably, they're missing Zach Collins too, their third best player. He's not even playing, so we'll see if he comes back in the series and really change that dynamic.
Yeah, I think the main thing that we just do not want to see is any excuses. I mean, go out there, leave it on the court, let the better team win. We just do not want to see all the people trying to make excuses for these guys, especially LeBron, especially when you're trying to make excuses for yourself. Go out there, get it done, no excuses, win or lose. If you want all the glory for being the champ, if you want to be crowned the GOAT, you want to keep putting yourself in that conversation and receive all the glory for, I'm the one seed in the West. I've made the finals so many years in a row out of the East. I should still deserve the glory for all that. If you want all the glory for that, then you got to accept, the losses too, that with the same enthusiasm.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I've been saying, like, the one thing that I wish I could see a reporter did the second that they ended up in the bubble, if they made a beeline to LeBron James, who was sitting pretty, one seed, probably feeling pretty confident, pretty cocky about the situation, and gone to him and said, okay, LeBron, whoever wins this, is this an asterisk kind of situation? Does this championship carry the same weight as a regular season championship? Does it count just as much or just as equal as all the other ones that you've wanted and have had? You know what I'm saying? Like, they needed to put him on record, because I can guarantee you, if they lose, he's going to start to slowly say, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
You can't really count this. It was because of the bumble and all this unique situation, not normal, ... blah, blah, blah. And man, he's going to be sour on whoever ends up winning this thing. And
if you would answer your question truthfully, he would say, "Well, it depends on if I win it or not."
Well, exactly. Yeah, in that
if
moment,
I win it, then it's
if I win,
it's totally
it counts.
legit. Yeah, I'm the GOAT.
But if I lose,
if I win it,
just put it.
Man.
Yeah. You slap an asterisk.
Yeah. I didn't have players on my team. There's no fans. There's no home court. No, I couldn't see my family. Who knows?
Man, it's so true. It's so true. All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. And my God, it's going to be definitely interesting for sure. So let's move on to Fair or Foul. Hot takes on hot topics in sports. Ohio State quarterback Justin Fields starts petition to relaunch Big Ten season. Chris, I'm going to start with you. Do you think this is fair or foul?
Absolutely fair. This is one of the topics we talked about in depth last week. These kids, they want to play. They don't want to go along with the Big Ten agenda of shutting down. They're like, why? This is silly. We're out here. We're getting tested. We're following all these guidelines. We're safe. We want to play. So good for him for launching a petition.
Kevin, what do you think? Fair or foul?
Yeah, he's potentially he's a junior now, so upperclassman. He should be playing. He needs to be out on the field. He needs to pack those stats. This is fair.
So sticking with the NCAA Council recommending 2020 fall sports athletes retain year of eligibility. What do you think there, Kevin? Is this fair or foul?
Yeah, this is also fair. I'm knocking this also fair.
And Chris, what do you think there? Fair or foul?
Yeah, it's just... Yeah, absolutely. Totally fair. I mean, it's only right if you're going to take away their ability to play, which is pretty much why they're there in the first place. In most of these cases, their scholarships, you take that away from them. It's not right for you then to send them off and say, all right, you can't come back next year. Yeah, that's definitely fair. I'm glad they thought of that.
Fair enough. Major League Baseball tells Red starter Trevor Bauer he will be disciplined if he wears special cleats in support of Dodgers pitcher Joe Kelly. Chris, what do you think, fair or foul?
I guess it's fair because technically it's against the rules, but I'm going foul. This is the MLB just trying to save some face on a dumb suspension, suspending a guy that did not even hit anybody, that when they're out there trying to protect those Astros and they don't want to get made fun of by another pitcher on another team.
What do you think there, Kevin, about the tribute cleats? Fair or foul?
I'm a big fan of tradition. I'm a big fan of unified uniforms. So in the dress policy, if no team can have any calligraphy or any kind of spontaneous, like weird, caricatures on their shoes, then this is fair. Good job, MLB. But if this is just you saving face, then this is foul. You decide.
If it was BLM on the cleats, would they allow it?
Oh, I ain't gonna touch that. All right, Raiders. John
question.
Gruden calls backup quarterback Marcus Mariota dazzling playmaker. Chris, what do you think? Is this fair or foul?
Yeah, this is John Gruden at his best, I guess. This is fair. He's trying to stoke the competition from David Carr, trying to light that fire under him because he is his number one starter. But he's saying, "Hey, I got a guy right behind you that's pretty darn good too."
He's dazzling. What do you think there, Kevin? What a fair foul from Gruden.
It is fair. He's a good time coach. This is this is someone that's gonna bring the best out of somebody. But he might be better than what's his face?
Carr.
Really? He might be.
Marcus Mariota.
Oakland.
This sounds like Monday Night Football Joe Gruden, where he's like, "This guy's the most dynamic football player in the world."
I think I see him starting in Oakland better than Carr.
All right, fair enough. We'll see what happens. Okay, sticking with the NFL, Dallas Cowboys using popsicles as a way to cool off players. What do you think here, Kevin? Fair or foul?
I mean, this is fair if you want to do that. This is foul because it's just dumb, but who am I to say? Do what you got to do.
Sit on your mom's lap and slurp on a popsicle. What do you think here, Chris? Fair or foul, Dallas Cowboys?
Yes, the reasoning is to lower the core temperature of these guys as if the Dallas Cowboys doesn't have enough money to have some places where they could just jump in like an ice bath or something. This is silly, but I mean, you want to feed the men popsicles? Fair, go for it.
Well, you could always do the man thing and actually just drink water. All right, and last but not least, Altuve asks Dusty Baker to drop him in the lineup. Kevin, is this fair or foul?
This is fair. Altuve, you suck. You need to be lower in the lineup. This is what you get for cheating. You should be batting ninth.
Buzz. All right, Chris, what do you think? Fair or foul?
Yeah, fair. I mean, way to have some self-awareness there by batting. Yeah, he should be batting ninth in single A at this point.
Single A. Oh man, and get his I don't know a Morse code. I don't even know what I'm trying to say.
His buzzer.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well that's gonna do it for us. Thank you for joining us. Sideline the Agenda, the podcast exposing woke sports culture, both on and off the field of play. Be sure to like and subscribe our podcast on YouTube and Apple Podcast, and follow us on Twitter, Parler, and Instagram. My name is Scott. That's Kevin. That's Chris. This is Sideline the Agenda podcast done right.